Most men think they know how to have deep conversations with women. They ask about her day, her job, her weekend plans. They think they're being attentive. But here's what they don't realize. She's had that exact same conversation with a dozen other people that week. Her coworker, her friend, her Uber driver. You're not creating closeness. You're creating comfort. And those are not the same thing. Here's a specific kind of question that does something different. Something most men never learn. It doesn't ask for information, it asks for truth. And when you ask it the right way, something shifts in how she sees you. Not as someone trying to impress her, but as someone who actually understands her. The men who know this don't have to chase, they don't have to prove. They create a pull that feels effortless because it's rooted in something real. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how it works. What you're about to learn isn't a trick. It's not a line you memorize and repeat. It's a framework based on how emotional intimacy actually forms between two people. And it's grounded in research from relationship psychology, particularly the work on self disclosure and vulnerability by psychologists like Arthur Aaron and Elaine Aaron. Here's what matters: closeness isn't built through shared experiences alone, it's built through shared understanding. And that understanding only happens when you know how to ask questions that go beneath the surface without making her feel interrogated or exposed. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 4 types of questions that create genuine emotional connection. You'll know when to use each one, and more importantly, you'll understand the psychological principle that makes them work, which is something I'll reveal toward the end that changes everything about how you approach conversation. But first, we need to talk about why most conversations fail. Think about the last few conversations you had with someone you were interested in. What did you ask? Probably things like, what do you do for work? Where are you from? What do you like to do for fun? Logical questions, safe questions, questions designed to gather information. And here's the problem: she's answered those questions 1,000 times. They don't require her to think, they don't require her to feel. She's on autopilot. And so are you. You think you're building connection, but you're actually doing something else. You're building a resume of facts about each other, which is fine for a networking event, but it does nothing to create the feeling of being seen. And that's what most men miss. Women don't feel closer to you because you know where she went to college or what her favorite food is. She feels closer to you when you make her feel understood in a way most people don't even attempt. When you ask surface level questions, you get surface level answers. And surface level answers don't create desire, they create politeness. The men who stand out don't ask what she does. They ask why it matters to her. They don't ask where she's from. They ask what shaped her. They don't collect facts. They invite reflection. And that's a completely different kind of conversation. So let's talk about what actually works. There are 4 types of questions that create closeness. Each one operates on a different psychological principle. And when you understand why they work, you'll never run out of things to talk about again. Question type 1, the origin question. This question asks her to reflect on where something in her life began. Not what she does, but how she became the person who does it. For example, instead of what do, you might ask what made you realize that was something you wanted to pursue. Instead of do you like traveling, you ask when did you first feel like you needed to see more of the world? Here's why this works. You're asking her to connect her present self to a moment in her past. That requires introspection. And introspection creates emotional presence. She's not reciting facts anymore. She's remembering. She's feeling. And in that moment, you're not just another guy asking questions. You're someone who cares about the story, not just the summary. This is based on the psychological concept of narrative identity. People feel understood when you're interested in how they became who they are, not just who they are right now. It signals that you see her as a person with depth, with history, with reasons, and that's rare. Question type 2, the value question. This one goes deeper. It asks her to reveal what matters to her and why. It's not what do you like to do, it's what's something you do that makes you feel like yourself. It's not what are you looking for, it's what do you need to feel like you're not wasting your time. Value questions don't ask for preferences. They ask for priorities. And when someone tells you what they value, they're giving you access to how they see the world. Here's the shift. Most people ask about actions. You're asking about meaning, and meaning is what people crave to talk about, but rarely get the chance to. Psychologically, this taps into something called values affirmation. When you give someone the space to articulate what's important to them, it strengthens their sense of self. And because you're the one creating that space, she begins to associate you with that feeling of being grounded and seen. This is where most men stop too early. They get one good answer and move on. But if you stay curious, if you follow up with, why is that important to you? Or what does that give you that nothing else does? That's when the conversation becomes something she remembers. Question type 3, the contrast question. This is where it gets interesting. A contrast question asks her to compare two parts of herself or two phases of her life. How are you different now than you were a few years ago? What's something people assume about you that's not really true? What do you want that you didn't used to care about? Why does this work? Because it asks her to hold two versions of herself in her mind at the same time, past and present, perception and reality, who she is and who she's becoming. This creates what psychologists call cognitive elaboration. She's not giving you a rehearsed answer. She's discovering the answer as she speaks. And that discovery process is where emotional intimacy lives. When she has to think, she feels something. And when she feels something while talking to you, you become part of that emotional experience. You're not just the person asking the question, you're the person who made her think about herself in a way she hadn't before. Most guys ask questions that confirm what they already assume. You're asking questions that let her reveal what's actually true. And the difference is everything. Question type 4, the future self question. This is the most powerful one, and it's the one that separates a good conversation from one that lingers. A future self question asks her to imagine who she's becoming and what she's moving toward, not what are your goals. That's a job interview. But something like, what's a version of your life you can see clearly, even if you're not there yet? What do you want to feel more of as you grow? What would make you feel like you're not just busy, but actually building something that matters? Here's why this is different. You're not asking her to perform, you're asking her to dream. And when someone shares their vision of who they want to become, they're trusting you with something vulnerable. This is grounded in research on self expansion. People are attracted to those who help them see a bigger version of themselves, not by telling them what to do, but by being curious about where they're headed. And when you ask this kind of question, you position yourself as someone who's thinking about the future, not just the present moment. You're now trying to extract value from her. You're interested in her evolution. And that kind of attention is magnetic. Now, here's the deeper truth. The reason these questions work isn't just because they're well crafted, it's because of what they signal about you. When you ask thoughtful questions, you're demonstrating something psychologists call secure attachment behavior. You're not needy. You're not performing. You're not trying to steer the conversation toward an outcome. You're genuinely curious. And curiosity without agenda is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have. Most men ask questions to fill silence or to keep her talking so they don't have to, or because they think it's polite. But when you ask the kind of questions I just shared, you're doing something else. You're creating space for her to be seen, not judged, not analyzed, seen. And when a woman feels seen by you, she doesn't just enjoy the conversation. She starts to wonder what it would feel like to be around you more often, to let you in further, to trust you with more. That's not manipulation, that's connection. And connection is what every meaningful relationship is built on. So, how do you actually use this? First, slow down. Most men ask questions like, they're checking boxes. Cool. Got it. Next question. That's not a conversation. That's an intake form. When she answers, stay with it. Don't rush to the next thing. Reflect back what she said. Let her know you're actually listening. If she says, I guess I've always been drawn to work that lets me help people. Don't just nod and move on. Say something like that. That makes sense. What does helping people give you that other things don't? Notice you're not agreeing or disagreeing. You're inviting her to go deeper. Second, don't perform. Don't try to have the perfect question ready. The best questions come from actually paying attention to what she just said and being curious about it. If she mentions she moved cities recently, don't ask, how's the new city? Ask what made you feel like it was time to leave. If she talks about her work, don't ask, what do you do exactly? Ask what part of it makes you feel like you're doing something that matters. You see the pattern? You're not asking for data. You're asking for depth. Third, be okay with silence. If you ask a meaningful question, she might need a moment to think. That's a good thing. Don't fill it. Let her arrive at the answer. Some of the most powerful moments in conversation happen in the pause. And finally, match her energy. Match her. If she's not ready to go deep, don't force it. Let the conversation breathe. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stay present without needing to perform or prove anything. If you want to go further with this, I've put together a free guide that breaks down the psychology of emotional connection in more detail. It includes conversation frameworks, real examples, and the mindset shifts that make this feel natural instead of strategic. You can grab it in the description below. It's something I created because I kept seeing the same pattern. Good men who genuinely cared but didn't know how to translate that care into the kind of conversation that actually builds attraction. This guide fixes that. Here's the thing, most men are terrified of saying the wrong thing. So they say safe things, and safe things create safe conversations. And safe conversations don't create closeness. But when you're willing to ask questions that matter, when you're willing to be genuinely curious about who she is and who she's becoming, you create something most people never experience, the feeling of being truly understood. And that feeling is what she'll remember. Not what you said, not what you looked like, but how you made her feel. Attraction doesn't follow logic. It follows emotion, and emotion follows understanding. So stop asking what she does. Start asking why it matters. Stop collecting facts. Start creating space for truth. Because the men who stand out aren't the ones with the best lines. They're the ones who know how to listen like it matters. And when you do that, you don't have to chase connection. It comes to you. If this resonated, leave a comment and let me know which question type you're going to try first. And if you're serious about becoming the kind of man women feel safe opening up to, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.